So, tell my backstory. Well, my name is Bobby Gueh, and my name quickly is from the Bassa tribe of Liberia, West Africa. And that's the tribe I was born into many years ago in Liberia. And the meaning of my middle name, Bowenyu, is the messenger, and my last name comes from a line of chiefs in my father's village that were warriors. So that's where the Gueh last name is from. I always like to share that because I wouldn't be here where I am, without the ancestors that came before me, my family lineage, my background, my history. So the name really means a lot to me. So I was born in Liberia, West Africa, and I'm going to give the year 1978 just to kind of put it in perspective. So Liberia is one of the countries in Africa that won its independence, basically that wasn't colonized. And what that means is the citizens of Liberia way back in the 1800s, they developed the country without any influence from European colonization, okay? And by doing that, the country had, experienced like a great longevity of just peace. There was no wars, there was nothing. It was a lot of, just unity within the communities. I remember as a kid, we lived about, 3 blocks from the beach. So we lived right on the Atlantic Ocean. And every weekend, my parents, we went down to the beach. We played around, we climbed coconut trees, we chased lizards. So, it was just, I was a normal kid. It was normalcy, it was fun. We went to a private school. We had a really good school. In fact, the school was ran by some Americans, the school that I went to. We had to wear uniforms to school. But it was just, I was a regular kid. We played a lot outside. We played a lot of games. We made up games growing up. So in the 70s and up until the war, it was just living in to me, paradise. That's where I kind of, see it and how things were. When the war, started, like I stated when we talked the other day, just imagine waking up one day to go to school and, your parents are like, your mom is like, you're not going to school today. And the reason you're not going to school because a war has started. So things shifted overnight, so you go from having this paradise and living in this paradise, having no care, chasing lizards, climbing coconut trees, going to the beach, and now you're living underneath a curfew. We couldn't leave our home. We were basically captured and bound by our house. We were, prisoners in our own home. We couldn't leave because it was so dangerous. So overnight it was fear. Overnight it was a lot of anxiety from my parents. Overnight it was a lot of uncertainty. It was a lot of confusion. You didn't know why they were fighting. You didn't know why the rebels were fighting. For us, it just became a nightmare. Our friends that we went to school with, we couldn't see them. Our friends that we played with in the neighborhood, we couldn't see them. Everybody was just prisoners to their home. And while you were prisoners to your home, you can only imagine when you hear gunshots, when you hear missiles, when you hear bombs, and those things going outside of your home, what is happening? So as a child, your mind is just running. You're trying to imagine what is going on. You're worried about your family. You're worried about your mom and your siblings, and kind of feeling helpless. That was one of the things that I remember even as a kid, that young, feeling that sense of helplessness. That was very real to me. Back then as a kid, I just thought there were some very bad people that were doing some very bad things. I wouldn't say it totally became normal because I was always in fear of what could happen. And what did happen, like I mentioned, when the rebels came to our house, that was like the point where, you know, I can't even explain how fearful and how scared we were, you know, because we just thought that was it, you know, because we heard horror stories. We heard about rebels going to homes and just killing everybody. We heard those things. So we just thought that was it. We just thought that the, you know, rebels were going to come in, kill my mom, and, you know, just, you know, kill us. And but we were hiding underneath the bed. I remember, you know, me and my siblings, and it felt like forever. It felt like just the hours wouldn't stop. It felt like it was just hours of being underneath that bed. And so to answer the question, like, did it become normal? I won't say it became normal, because that's not normal to live in that kind of fear. For kids to live in that kind of fear. And that's what war does to people. You know, you're constantly fearful of the unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen. I never knew why the rebels were trying to fight the government and what their plans and what their agenda was back then. You know, but as I grew older, I knew what it was like, and I knew why rebels, and I knew why, you know, some people decided to take over a government. You know, I learned that. You know, but as a kid, I didn't realize that. I just thought it was some bad people that were doing some very bad things. We were excited. Here's the thing. When you're in another country, America is like this place of gold. America is like, you know, you hear about America and you just think, wow, you know, streets of gold. It's like everything is nice. And so we were excited. We were like, yes, we're going to get a chance to get out of here. Particularly going through that war, you know, we were so excited to leave. But once the reality sat in that we were going to leave our friends and our family. And it didn't hit us then until we were leaving that night. Hit me then that we're going to be going to another country forever. You know, so to be leaving, you know, people you call friends and family and going to a whole nother country across the ocean was kind of traumatizing, you know, for me. And then once we landed in America, you know, it was tough because I had to kind of start all over, you know, as a kid, you know, but it was kind of bittersweet. We were happy that we were coming to America, but once we realized we were going to be leaving our family and our friends, it was very hard. It was extremely shocking to come from Liberia. And the first place we started we lived was in Chicago, Illinois. I don't know if you know much about Chicago, but the part of Chicago we stayed in was very rough. It was like the ghetto. It was very rough, very tough area. And we left Liberia, we left a private school, very, you know, respected school in Liberia for its standards. We come to America in Chicago and we're living in basically poverty. We're living in a community where a lot of kids didn't want to go to school. You know, I grew up in Liberia wanting to go to school, but now we were in America, in Chicago, in an urban setting. Kids didn't want to go to school. If they went to school, it was to have breakfast and lunch because they didn't have it at home. So we're in a very, very poor neighborhood in Chicago, and it was cold. It was very cold, you know, so to get used to all of that, it was very tough as a little kid. You know, I had to really adjust to just the weather. I had to adjust to the mentality, you know, of people. So, you know, that assimilation process was extremely hard, you know, as a little kid. Well, for me, I think my story is not ending. My story has not ended. I think the experiences I've had from Liberia to Chicago to Trenton, New Jersey to now being in Georgia I think that's just part of my overall story. And I'm very, 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 very heavy in belief in everybody have a story. And it's our story, it's our narrative that make us who we are. So this is only a chapter in my life. And I know there's going to be more chapters written about Bobby Gueh in the future.